the leadership, it becomes very important. The third factor, if you remember in the leadership process when we have discussed, I have talked about leader, followers and situation. So, therefore, the situation and the environment that plays a very important role. So, here we will talk about the situation, right, and beautiful picture, through picture it has been depicted, that is the when you are on the land you are looking for the boat, and when you are in the boat you are looking for the land, right. So, therefore, in that case it is the situation versus personality, task, organization, formal aspects, informal aspects, environment, adaptive leadership, research paper, case study and book recommendations references as usual. So, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, situation is relative position or the combination of circumstances at a certain moment. No? So, this is very important, right. So, it is a very relative position, as we have seen in the previous slide, that you are at the boat, in the boat, then you want the land, when you are in the land you want the boat. So, therefore, it is a situation, right. And interestingly, very right word has been used, relative position, right. So, therefore, in that case situation and relative position, right, are the circumstances at a certain moment that will decide about how the situation is. All the circumstances and things that are happening in a particular time and in a particular place, right, and time and in a particular place, then definitely in that case it becomes about that particular situation, that is under what situation are you working. Sociologist William I. Thomas and the Florian Zaneski are credited with laying the theory and research groundwork for the concept that is known as the definition of the situation is there, and therefore, in that case it is the it depends on the, right, that is the what type of these the theory and research groundwork that is created, right. So, for the purpose of defining the situation. So, in the book titled The Polish Peasant in Europe and the America, William and Florian wrote that a person has to take social meanings into account. Now here you see, that is the, whenever we talk about a particular topic or concept actually. So, then in that concept there are the different factors or different dimensions which affect that particular definition, concept, topic. So, here we have to take, like according to this book title, social meanings into account, and I think this is also very much applicable in the context of India, and interpret his or her experience not exclusively in terms of his or her own needs and the wishes, but also in terms of the traditions. So, this in India also you will find, and especially you will find that is the Indian ladies, right. So, they will not take a decision just what they want to take, they will follow the traditions, customs, beliefs, right, and the aspirations of his or her social milieu, and that is true. So, in situation, in situation whenever we are talking about the gender based leadership, if we talk about, so why many times we find that is the especially in India, so ladies are the better manager and leader as compared to male, and the reason is of this in the context when we make the study of the social meanings. So, in India, this society, the society's backbone is the ladies of the house, whether it is the mother or wife or daughter or sister, right, whatever we talk about. So, role we talk about, then in that case it is the social meanings, because they carry the traditions, customs, beliefs, and to run an organization like they carry for the family. So, any decisions related to the traditions of the family, customs of the family, beliefs in the family, right, and according to their social milieu. So, then in that case they refer to the shared beliefs. It is not like this. Many times you will find if the male is the head of the family, he may like to take the decision on the basis of his own analysis. But if the lady is the head of the family, then she will consultative type, participative style of the leadership that will work in the house. So, that is a shared beliefs are there, and cultural practices, right, and norms that become common sense to native the members of a society. Or here I would like to the example which I was checking, then I will say become the common sense to native members of a family. An organization is also a family, and these social dimensions, no, that is also becoming very very important nowadays to the organizations to follow, and becoming the ethical and moral emotions, take care of the moral emotions. And in the, here when we then it will be having the complete the it will complete the social meanings. So, therefore, to learn an organization the social meanings, moral these emotions, right. So, these are becoming very very important. So, in this book that is the Polish peasant in Europe and America, William and Florian wrote that a person has to take the social meanings into account, and that is also very much applicable in the case of the leadership in India. Situation versus personality. The studies of leadership effectiveness, the situation can and does changes very dramatically. Overnight, within seconds. What overnight means, that is just an example, but within seconds the situation changes. Like I will like to mention about that is the personality of Rama. So, Lord Rama, the day before he was asked to take the to become the king of the Ayodhya, right, and therefore in that he was told by father that tomorrow morning you will become the king. But tomorrow morning when he visits to his father, then the father says that is no, you have to go to the forest and that is the you will not be the king, right. And here, like it is just like I would like to take that is the one executive has called one day before and told that is that tomorrow you will become the CEO. You take the charge of CEO tomorrow morning. And when he goes to the next day to the office of the chairman, and the chairman says no, your services are terminated. Now, how the person will react to the situation, and therefore here that is a react and response that shows the personality of an individual, whether the person reacts to the situation or he responds to the situation. Like in the case of Lord Rama, from where we learn that is the we have to respond to the given situation. So, if this is the order of the head of the family, right, or in that case it was enough for the Rama to have the to know that is it is a wish of the father. But here if it is the order of the family, then in that case also the personality will respond. The personality like Rama, they will respond. Such personalities they will not react to the situation. That is, yesterday you were told to be the CEO and today you are saying that is the your services no more are required, right. So, if this is the situation, so that is a personality, situation and the personality, that is a I think it is a very good example how situation changes, then the how a personality responds to the situation and does not react to a situation. By an effective leader of a different jobs may change considerably, because the situations facing leaders of such groups may be so variable. It becomes quite obvious that the studies of the leader characteristics have yielded inconsistent results when looking at leadership effectiveness across jobs or situations. So, we cannot generalize. we cannot generalize, and therefore, there will be the different characteristics will be emerge. I will say the different personalities. Every individual is having the different personality, and therefore, as a different personality, it will be the in a given situation a different response will be there. Thus, the importance of the situation in the leadership process should not be overlooked, right. So, the personality and the situation, right, that has to be taken into consideration whenever we are talking about the leadership. So, Lord Rama has become the leader because in the with the changing in the situations, he has responded to the situations. He has put an example. So, similarly, in the family or in the organization, as the situation changes, so then if effective leadership, it will be across the Java situations. So, it will not be the same, it will be inconsistent. So, there are inconsistent results are there whenever we are talking about that particular situation. Some leadership researchers emphasize the importance of the situational process in contrast to the great man theory of leadership. These researchers maintain that the situation not someone's traits or abilities. So, therefore, it is the situation decides and not the individual who plays the most important role in determining who emerges as a leader. As support by the situational viewpoint, these researchers noted that great leaders typically emerge during economic crisis, social upheavals or revolutions. Great leaders were generally not associated with the periods of the relative calm or quiet is there. So, identification of the leader comes in the tough time only. We have talked about the crisis management. So, whenever we have talked about that leadership in the crisis management, you will find that is about the situation, and in the given situation how the leadership has been developed. Here we will talk about the theories in support of the situational factors. In role theory, a leader's behavior was said to depend on a leader's perception of several critical aspects of the situation. Rules and regulations governing the job, role expectation of subordinates, peers and superiors, the nature of the task and feedback about subordinates' performance is there. So many factors. So, first and foremost is about the what is the rule of the land, right. So, as per the law of the land it will be decided, and then the people surrounding to that particular person, the subordinates, peers, superiors, right, that is also they are also important, and the nature of the task and feedback. So, therefore, all these play the role. In multiple influence model, Hunt and Osborne distinguish between the micro variables such as task characteristics, right, and macro variables such as the external environment is there. Here also we will find that in the role theory also the task that has been is playing the important role is there, right, and the external environmental factors that also plays an important role. And so, Hunt and Osborne believed macro variables that have the pervasive influence on the ways leaders act, right. So, therefore, accordingly it will be decided. And this situation versus personality, we have talked about the leader, follower and this task or situation or the organization and the environment, right. So, therefore, this is creating the situation. The task level, the organizational level and the environmental level. So, each of which provides a different perspective to examine the leadership processes there. So, according to task one has to take the decision, according to the culture of the organization one has to take the decision, and according to the existing environment one has to take the decision. Now, we will take one by one task. The most fundamental level of the situation involves the tasks to be performed by individuals or teams within the organization. And there are several ways in which the tasks vary are particularly relevant to the leadership, such as task autonomy. is the degree to which a job provides an individual with some control over what he does or how he does it. So, therefore, in that case the one has the control, that is how this task is to be performed, and therefore, then there will be the task autonomy. Similarly, there will be the task feedback, and task feedback refers to the degree to which a person accomplishing a task receives information about performance from the performing the task itself. So, therefore, this degree to which the task receives information, right. So, here, so whatever feedback will be there, according to the task will change, right, and because the performance from performing the task itself, that will vary this particular activity. So, like the task autonomy and task feedback, there will be the task structure also. A degree to check up which extent any task is structured or unstructured, right. So, normally if there is a structured task, there will not be much to do by the leader, but when there is an unstructured task, then there is a lot of things are to be done by the leader. The more planned process rules of the governing, the more structured task is there, and therefore, in that case, if that particular activity which the leader has to perform, a task one has to perform, if it is a very planned process, then definitely in that case there will be the more task structure will be followed. Task interdependence concerns the degree to which the task require coordination and synchronization for work groups or teams to accomplish desired goals. So, therefore, in that case it is the degree to which the person has to perform or synchronize for the group or teams to accomplish the desired goals. Task interdependence differs from the autonomy in that workers or the team members may be able to accomplish their task in an autonomous fashion. So, but the products of their efforts must be coordinated for the group or the team to succeed is there. Two types of the problems associated with the task is there. One is the technical problems, other is the adaptive problems are there. Whenever we are talking about the technical problems, so these problems are which can be solved without changing the nature of the social system itself within the occur. So, therefore, this is a very important issue, because as I have talked about, that is it is the society norms, and therefore, in the society norms it is without changing the nature of the social system you have to work. So, it will be a big technical problem. What is the work? Applying current know-how, but if there is any change, then definitely in that case it will be becoming the difficult, that is the how you are going to apply the future technology. And third one is who does the work, that is the authorities are there. So, here technical problems of the nature of social system, the know-how system and the who is doing the work, that is the authorities. So, we have to handle these type of issues. While in the adaptive problems, what are these problems? Those problems which can only be solved by changing the system itself, otherwise it will not be changed, and therefore, in that case this will be the adaptive problem will be there. What is the work? Discovering new ways. And who does the work? The people facing the challenge, they are doing the work is there. As far as the organization is concerned, so Kaplan and Norton 1996 have described a set of operating assumptions underlying the information age and they contrasted them with their predecessors in the individual age. And they describe changes in the following ways companies operate there that have affected its leadership. Cross functions. Organizations must operate with integrated business process that cut across the traditional business functions are there. Link to customers and suppliers. IT enable organizations to integrate supply, production and delivery process, resulting in the improvement in cost, quantity and response time is there. So, therefore, these are the major factors on which the organization is dependent, and therefore, it will be having the certain attention will be required in the improvement in cost, quantity and response time. Another one is the customer segmentation. Company must learn to offer customized products and services to diverse the customer segmentation is there, and therefore, these are the following changes, and that will making the leadership the more challenging. The other dimensions are the global scale. Now, earlier what was happening, it was the local level only, but now it is at the global level. So, companies today they compete against the best companies throughout the world, And when you are competing with the best companies throughout the world, it becomes very important that is you are having the global scale. Product life are shrinking, companies must anticipate customers' future needs. So, therefore, in that case if you have come across with the innovation for the today, hardly it will work for 3 months, after 3 months you have to come out with the new innovation. So, therefore, it is a continuous cycle, right, but then it requires time. So, that therefore, in that case you have to start much early, you have to start in a big concept. So, therefore, in that case whenever there is a change in 3 months, immediately you are coming out with the new product. So, innovative new products and services rapidly deploy new technologies into the operations are there, but new products will be developed with the help of new technologies. So, therefore, your life cycle of the technology is 3 months only, and then if it is a heavy investment is there, how will you change your investment in the next every 3 months. So, knowledge workers are there, all employees must contribute value by what they know and by the information they provide. So, therefore, these knowledge workers, that those who are knowing, that is the what value they can add to the organization, they are adding, and whatever the information is required, they are able to provide that particular informations. The formal aspects of the these discipline of management organizational behavior, it can have a profound impact on leadership is there, formal approach is there. So, level of authority, it is the hierarchical level in the organization. Organization structure is concerned, an organization's activities are coordinated and controlled. It represents another level of the situation in which leaders and followers must operate, and it may vary in the complexity and degree of formalization is there. How this formalization will be done is a degree of standardization, which usually varies with the size, and centralization, that is the diffusion of decision making is there. The formal aspects are on the basis of the structure varying in complexity, horizontal complexity and vertical complexity. So, horizontal complexity is the number of specialization at any particular organization level in an organization, and the vertical complexity is the number of hierarchical levels appearing on an organizational chart. Similarly, the spatial complexity is the geographical dispersion of an organization's members, and therefore, in that case if the members are at the different places in the geographical location, then that will be the third dimensions will be there. So, the here it is become very important whether we are going to work into the horizontal complexity, that is the flat structure, or into the tall structure, that is the vertical complexity, or there will be the informal structures, and that is a spatial complexity will be there. If informal aspects are there, then definitely, although most people probably think of culture in terms of very large social groups, the concept also applies to an organization is there. So, concerned members subjective reactions to the organization culture, there has been defined a system of shared background. So, we have talked about the shared values, and the leadership has to be performed in the shared culture, shared values, shared society. These two concepts are distinct such that organization climate is partly a function of organizational culture. Our feelings or emotional reactions about an organization are affected by the degree to which we shall the prevailing the values, beliefs and backgrounds of the organizational members are there, and therefore, in that case those who are the people surrounding to in working into that organization, and they have to make the emotional reactions will be there, as I mentioned earlier also. So, therefore, there will be the reaction, but what is required, the response. The third dimension, the task, organization and environment. So, Ronald Hafiz argues that the leaders are not only are facing crisis than ever before, but that a new mode of leadership is needed because we are in a permanent state of crisis. And therefore, that leadership in crisis, that is to be studied. Change has become so fast and so pervasive that it impacts virtually every organization everywhere and everyone in them. So, therefore, here, so whatever the changes become this so fast, then it, naturally it impacts the virtually organization because of the geographical locations. VUCA, that is the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous is there. So, therefore, in that case in the VUCA time, the new state of affairs will there, because the world is becoming so volatile and uncertain, right. So, how this leadership, that has to be flexible, that has to be changed, otherwise whatever the complexity will be there, then to handle that complexity, it will be very difficult for the leader to come out with that particular situation. In the constantly changing environment, as we have talked about the task, organization and environment is there, two vectors added to the original diagram highlights how two contrasting and multidimensional kinds of environment affect the leadership is there. So, therefore, in that case we are talking about, that is these are the environment, complex, unfamiliar, ambiguous and rapid change is there, and when there is another environment and simple, familiar and a clear gradual change is there. Now, in both the cases, the leader, we are talking about the environment, but environment can be of this type, environment 1, or it can be environment 2. But all in this task organization and environment is carrying here. So, therefore, in that case, what will be the leadership style? Because there are the followers, right, in this particular task. So, the two vectors added these multidimensional kinds of environment which is affecting the leadership is there, and not implied there is a categorization of environments, either simple or complex. It is used just to represent in the figure a range of possible environments. So, complex may be, unfamiliar may be, ambiguous may be and rapid change may be. So, political, economical, social, technological, right, environmental and legal. So, this pastel. So, leaders have to analyze the business environment to make the wise decisions, taking into account the situation, right. And in what is the situation? The leader follows situation framework is consists of to make the political, economical, social, technological, environmental and legal aspects are there. We have talked about that is a social meanings in the leadership is there. So, it is critical for leaders to have an understanding of societal culture and the associated belief wherever the organization is working, no. And when we are talking about the multinational organization, so every nation is having its own culture and practices, that is to be that beliefs, characteristics and the customs of that organization, that has to be known by the leaders, so to avoid the conflicts and misunderstandings. Societal culture refers to those learned behaviors characterizing the total way of life of members within the given society, right. So, therefore, I have mentioned in the previous of this, that is the person learns from the society. So, leaders are developed from the society. So, therefore, in that case they are required to know the global context and respectful of the cultural differences and cultural perspectives, and not only they should know, but they should be also responsible for the different culture, right, and the different perspectives in the organization, because it is becoming the global village. So, naturally there will be the different approaches. So, what is required? Adaptive leadership is required. So, in the adaptive leadership is a process principle of shared responsibility for the future success of the business or services there. So, Ron Herfis and the Mark Linsky defines adaptive leadership as a practical leadership framework that individuals and organization adopt and thrive in challenging environment is there. Wonderful definition is there. So, the adaptive leaders must have the four fundamental traits, foundational traits: emotional, organizational, character and the development is there. So, 4 A's of the adaptive leadership is anticipation, articulation, adaptation and the accountability is there. So, anticipation of the likely future needs, trends and options, articulation of these needs to build collective understanding, adaptation to that there is a continuous learning and adjustment of the responses, this is very important, adaptation. Accountability is there when the maximum transparency of decision making process and openness to challenges and the feedback is there. So, therefore, the accountability has to be hold for this the leadership styles. So, situational changes, technical and adaptive challenges and the adaptive challenges are there. So, leader behavior is to get on the balcony, identify the adaptive challenge, regulate the distress, maintain discipline, attention, give the work back to the people and protect the leadership voices from the below. Adaptive work will be holding environment, leader, followers, interaction, that is becoming very important. As usual, we will talking about these research papers, the role of the situation in leadership. This is the American psychologist paper written by the Victor H. Vroom and Arthur G. Jago. So, purpose of this paper is to integrative examination of the different leadership theories to lay emphasis on role of situation in leadership by laying a taxonomy of the situational effects on the leadership is there. So, this paper is very interesting because it is talking about that is how you can achieve the organizational effectiveness by understanding the situation, how leaders behave, situational influence, the consequence of the leaders behavior is there. These are the practical implications relevant to the both research and the practice of the leadership is there. As usual, this is the case study which is about the Virginia Tech shooting hero to midst of the horror and a dark day at Virginia Tech. On that day, the show showing he went on a shooting rampage that killed 32 students and faculty and injured a host of others. He created a situation of terror, but in that same awful situation, heroes were created. So, wonderful message is there, that is from the awful situations how the heroes were created. And so, therefore, describes how and the two classmates barricaded their classroom door at the Norris Hall, right. And the days after that Zack Peck was interviewed by the Matt Lauren on NBC's Today Show. Laurel asked Zack if he could have predicted before the shooting how he would react. The young hero, whose first reaction had been fear, said, "It is not possible for anyone. There is no way of telling what I would have done until you are put in that particular situation." Wonderful answer. So, with respect to the case, discuss how the situation influences leaders and followers. Do the situational leaders always have to be reactive to the situation, right, or the prevention in the situation? It is very difficult to say. The book recommendation is about the lessons learned in the change leadership. So, therefore, it will be you will be able to understand that is the how to develop the effective solution by learning from the success and failure of others is there. And the avoid the placing your trust in the wrong people, right. Design training programs to fix problem behaviors and get leaders to lead and motivate the troops to change is there. These are the references which you can refer for your further studies and also for this particular study material. And this is all about the whenever we are talking about the situational leadership. So, here the situational environment, how the people are able to face and then what type of these leadership will work. So, ultimately the conclusion is this, that is the it has to we have to understand in the given situation a reaction is required, a response is required, and if the response is required, we have to show the interest for the responses and then we have to work on that is a responsive leadership and make and avoid to make the reaction to the given situation and environment rather than respond, right. This is all about the situation, environment and the leadership is there. Thank you.